Hey, what's up, podcast? It's Jeff, and you are listening to a special bonus episode of Teach Better Talk. This is audio pulled from one of our daily drop-ins. That's right, daily drop-ins are back every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time over on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. This is happening from November 23rd all the way to December 18th, so join us on any of the social media platforms. We are at Teach Better Team for our daily drop-ins. We're here to support you, answering questions, talking about fun stuff, bringing on special guests, anything you need, we're here for you. Join us for the daily drop-ins. Let's get into this special bonus episode. Enjoy.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 14 of the daily drop-in. Day 14 already. I can't believe we've been doing this for 14 days in a row. Woo! But it's amazing. And today we have an amazing conversation in store. We've got Kendall Sweeney joining us from Move This World, and I cannot wait to have her just fill your day, fill your morning with some sunshine, some optimism, and amazing advice. So, Kendall, are you about ready?
I am.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get this show on the road. Let's play the fun music, get everybody fired up, and then we'll be right back in about 20 seconds. And we're back. Doesn't that music kind of just get you going, Kendall? It kind of gets you a little energized. I love it. I love it. All right. Teach Better family, let us know who is here, where you're watching from, maybe if you've got a cup of coffee, what you like in your coffee. I'm a strong black coffee kind of guy. I'm 3-4 cups a day just to get my juices flowing. I know, Kendall, we talked a little bit before, and you already had your 1 cup, and now you are on the water. Much better person than me. So,
well, I'll be on my second in no time now. So,
well, hopefully this will get you going, and you won't even need that other cup of coffee. Good morning to Carly Spina, who is joining us. Spina is one of the most amazing people on the planet. I was actually watching her daughter do a Facebook Live last night. She's awesome. She's inspiring. So Kendall, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
No, this is awesome. And Carly said she's iced coffee every day, no matter the season. That's just crazy. You know? and I know she's in Northern Illinois, and it's snowing here in Michigan. I know you're out east, and it's snowing like crazy where you are. Do you do the iced coffee even in the winter?
So I'm actually the opposite. I was going to say I do hot coffee all season. So I do hot coffee in the summer. So a little bit different. Every once in a while I'll switch it up. But today's definitely a hot coffee kind of day with the snow coming down. So.
Yeah, definitely a hot coffee all day kind of day for me. And Nikki Jacoby sipping on a caramel vanilla tea.
Yum.
I did not know you could do that kind of stuff with tea. I've never gotten into the whole tea bandwagon. I'm just not sophisticated enough. My pinky doesn't go in the air quite high enough. I don't know what it is, but Nikki, so happy to have you here. So Kendall, I'm sorry, I'm talking about all these other people. Let's talk about you for a second. When Ray Hewitt first reached out to me and asked me to facilitate today's daily drop-in, and she said that you were going to be on, I got to be honest with you. I kind of geeked out slightly. Got a little bit excited because you and I have never really talked before, but I am super excited to get to know you and the work that you're doing. So when she told me that you were going to be the person on today, I said, yes, double yes, sign me up. I am stoked for this. And I know Jeff Gargas, who's joining us today, is super excited as well because he needs a little pick-me-up. I think Jeff Gargas is the opposite. He knew I was going to be on. He said, Ray, you got to get Schmittou a good guest on. You got to get somebody that's going to bring some life to the show. And that's you. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat a little bit more.
No, I'm super excited. So there might be some people that have watched this daily drop-in for the last 14 days, or maybe even joined us every day back in March and April and May when we were doing the drop-ins. That still haven't quite connected with you yet. See, now Jeff confirms that that's exactly how it went. He wanted to have you here just to bring life to the show. And Michelle, one of my favorite Buckeyes, is here as well. But can you introduce yourself to our community, to our family, and just let them know who you are, where you are, what you do, and who in the world Kendall Sweeney is?
Absolutely. So my name is Kendall Sweeney, and I am representing Move This World this morning. Move This World, if anyone is not as familiar with us, we are a social emotional learning program. So my role at Move This World, I have the privilege of supporting all of the schools that actually use the program. So I get to spend every day really chatting with principals and counselors and social workers and everyone that's supporting social emotional learning at their schools, which is, I mean, as I mentioned before, such a privilege to get to be a part of those conversations and support them with our program and really help them make the most of their use of this world. And prior to that, my background's actually in social work. So prior to being at Move This World, I was working for a company that actually supported healthcare, but it was a tech company, and I got to help with building out one of their programs. And it was at that point in time that I realized that I really liked working with large populations and being able to empower them with different tools for their community. And I've always had a really strong passion for education. So I was lucky enough to find Move This World, which is really just an amazing program and support the build out of our social emotional learning program and all of the individuals that use it.
That's awesome. And thanks so much for that context and that background. And I'm going to ask the people in the comments, of those people that are joining in, like the Michelles or the Jessicas or Nikki or Carly, or even Jeff Gargas, if he has to. If you've got a question that you want to direct over here to Kendall, feel free to throw it in the comments, because I'm feeling like I could go one of two ways. I could either just sit here and talk Kendall Sweeney and really get to know you, figure out your passions, your interests, or we can talk Move This World and what Move This World is all about. And maybe we'll talk both. I don't know. I'm curious to see which way the audience wants to go. Otherwise, this will just be Dave Schmittou driving the conversation, which I am totally comfortable with. But I don't know if the people watching it necessarily want me to drive this. So feel free to just drop something in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I know Carly Spina already thinks that you are an absolute rock star with a capital R. And by rock star, I'm sure she means country star, because country stars are the ones that are up on this pedestal. Rock stars are cool. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of groupies out there for rock stars, but they have a shorter shelf life. Country stars tend to last longer and ferment and grow finer. So I'm going to say you're like a country star, Kendall. And I guess that kind of confirms it me. I want to talk you a little bit. So you are at Move This World, but you've got this social work background. Let me just break that down. Social work, that is like God's work. What in the world drove you to that career to say, this is where I want to go? It's something that I could never do. It just seems like it would be constant heartbreak. How do you manage this? Why did you jump into this role and that work?
It's a great question. I think growing up, I always had a strong desire and interest to help others. I was kind of drawn to that. And as I got older and explored different interests, I couldn't figure out exactly how I wanted to, or what position I wanted to be in where I could support others. And in college, I thought a little bit about doing something like speech language pathology, where I could work either in a school setting or a hospital setting. But as I kind of explored that a little bit further, I realized that what I liked about social work is that there's so much that you can do with it. It's a really large field, and there's so many different capacities at which you can support individuals. So I was really drawn to it for that reason. And I think I had different experiences in high school and college and different internships and, volunteer opportunities. And there were little moments, I think, where I realized that that was something that I really cared about and was passionate about. So I eventually went back to school for social work in New York, and while there was positioned for my field placement in two different settings, one of which being an adult healthcare program where I was able to work on different counseling skills and kind of learn what it's like to work with individuals in a long-term setting. The other was actually a hospital. in an emergency room. So that was kind of quite the opposite, where the skills were much more, we were working with people in the short term and connecting them with different resources, and both really amazing experiences. And I think one thing you pointed out is that there can be a lot of heartbreak in that. But it's also such a privilege to be able to connect with individuals on that level and bear witness to their strength and the resilience that so many individuals possess. So there's so much that I learned during those times. And yeah, it's pretty incredible field.
You are incredible. I think Jessica sums it up best, that we love social workers. I'm a teacher, I'm a school leader, but I have identified a few jobs that I know I am not equipped to do. One is working a cash register in a retail establishment. Can't do it, won't do it, would not be good at it. Two, even though I am a certified K-8 teacher, administrator, working as a full-time kindergarten or preschool teacher, cannot do it, will not do it. And social work is something that I don't think I would be equipped to do. I get attached, I think, too easily or too firmly. And I can't even imagine, you talk about this heartbreak that I know I brought up. I can't imagine how that works. I mean, you're constantly out there solving problems, trying to perform miracles on a daily basis for people. And most of the time, I'm sure that it works out perfectly, but there are those times where it doesn't mesh, it doesn't work out. And I can't imagine. So God bless you for going out there and doing the work. And Joe, I could never be a teacher like you either, Joe. You're awesome. Nikki says it exactly right. Pre-K teachers are saints. Social workers are absolutely incredible. You're miracle workers is what you are. You're out there performing miracles on a day-to-day basis. And now you're doing this work with Move This World. Can you explain to people what Move This World is all about? Because the more that I've explored and tried to figure this out, the more impressed I am. So let me hear it straight from you, the miracle worker herself, Kendall Sweeney. What is Move This World all about?
So Move This World is all about supporting schools and communities with social emotional learning. And one thing that I think I really just kind of going back to, I know that you were calling me a miracle worker, which I definitely wouldn't go as far to claim or support. But one thing that I really like about the capacity at which I'm using my social work background in is the fact that I get to support the counselors and the social workers that are doing this work in schools right now. And one really amazing piece about our program is that it makes it really easy for classrooms to check in with their students on a regular basis and support social emotional learning, because the program is all video based. So teachers aren't left having to plan certain lessons. I mean, we know that they have so much on their plates, especially right now. And so the program is delivered through bite-sized videos that are designed to open and close instructional time. So there's a lot of different really creative ways that classrooms get to engage in this work. Sometimes, and I think this is something that Jess might have brought up in one of the other daily drop-ins, sometimes we'll have students create a frozen statue that represents their inner superhero powers, or a frozen statue that represents how they're feeling that day and what that feeling would look like in a statue. Or sometimes there will be group poetry about stress and connecting students around what their stress looks and feels like through poetry. So there's embodiment, there's movement, there's a lot of different creative ways that we go about supporting SEL. There's definitely something in there for everyone, but we try and make it really easy for the teachers to implement, so they're not left trying to plan yet another lesson or a piece to support this.
That's powerful. Carly asked a great question that I'm going to dive into in just a second. So I'm putting it on the screen so you can start to process and think. Carly is asking, do you have advice for educators who are struggling with compassion fatigue? I think it's an amazing question, because one thing that we've heard throughout this pandemic especially is that teachers are being asked to create skill sets or to learn things that they've never had before. Teachers are being asked to step into roles that they've never had to fill before. And one of those roles is this de facto counselor, social worker, this person that is just pouring into students as people and as individuals more than simply students and consumers of information. And part of that is because there's been so little face-to-face human interaction, and it's difficult for counselors to step in and pull their small groups, or social workers to do their interventions. It's difficult for schools to implement their SEL programs that they might have been starting early on. So teachers are really starting to feel this need to do all things for all kids. And right now, especially right before the holidays, when we're starting to see fatigue really set in, teachers are just flat out exhausted from trying to do all the things. Is there good advice for those teachers out there right now that, as Carly said, are struggling with compassion fatigue?
It's a really important question. And for me, a couple things come to mind, but the first thing that comes to mind is, I think, the importance of connecting with other educators that might be experiencing something similar. Because I think one thing that makes it so difficult is that feeling of being isolated and not necessarily knowing how to talk about what it is you're experiencing. And I think there's so much power to connecting with the other educators around you and the other individuals on what it is that they're doing to support themselves, and even sometimes just acknowledging that you feel a certain way. I think there's so much power to that, and a lot of the times we're so used to just being in go, go, go mode that we try and just get ahead of some of those different problems. But taking that moment to pause and acknowledge and name for yourself what it is you're feeling, and find ways to connect with some of the other individuals that might be going through something similar, I think is such a big piece of this. And knowing that you're not alone in that. I mean, I think this year more than ever, it's so easy to feel isolated and alone because we're not having those natural conversations by the printer or the water fountain and just kind of checking in with one another. We have to be so intentional about it. And I think it's so easy to miss out on some of those natural connections and to feel really alone in our different feelings and experiences. And that power of connection, I think, can be such a big piece to, just as a first step in acknowledging what it is you're going through and knowing that you're not alone in that necessarily.
It's an interesting thought. And first of all, good morning to Ray Hewitt, one of my favorite people on the planet. I'm sure she is checking in between meetings right now. So you're making me think of something in kind of a slightly different way. So when I was a school-based educator, I used to avoid the staff lounge at all costs. I felt like it was just this place of toxicity and negativity. But you know what you just made me think of, I wonder if there's any truth to the fact that at times that staff lounge can be a dumping ground where teachers were able to just get it all out, to share their truth, share their perspective, and then move on throughout their day. And they were able to feel like, although it might have been negative, at least there was not misery loves company, but there was that companionship piece, and they were able to just get it out and feel a part of a community. And that is missing for a lot of people right now. And I'm not saying go out there and just start throwing your negativity out there and just start spewing all this but I wonder if that is adding to the fatigue of truly this isolation, where we're lacking the island of misfit toys, if you will, to bring a holiday movie into the conversation. But how do we form that relationship, and how do we do that right now during a pandemic? I'm a firm believer that a lot of what we're seeing right now during this pandemic isn't new. It's just magnifying existing struggles that we've always had. So how do we as adult educators, I know the lens that we're supposed to be talking about is really kids and how to help kids, but unless the educators are healthy and strong, kids aren't going to be able to get there as well. Is this something like that where Move This World comes in because they can offer that support to the kids so teachers can then focus on other things, not feeling like they have to do all the things? Or is it supporting each other through conversations like this? I mean, what is that? What is the advice for those educators to get connected?
I'm so glad that this has come up because I didn't mention this before, but another big piece of what Move This World does is support educators. And we have various different professional development offerings that give us the chance to facilitate different exercises for teachers that are very similar to the exercises their students do, that allow for them to acknowledge some of what they're carrying. And I think so there's that formal way of doing this, having that, hour to 3 hours long to unpack some of this and connect with your peers. But I think there's a ton of different ways that you can build this into bite-sized interactions, as long as there's a lot of intention. So that, because I do think that there's value in having that time in the staff lounge where you're just kind of like feeling relaxed and venting about whatever's on your mind. But I also think that it's important that those conversations lead to productive elements as well. And I think with that in mind, having some intention behind some of this can be important. I always encourage the individuals that I work with to incorporate different practices to open and close meetings. And that's something that on the Move This World team, we do on a regular basis. Anytime we meet with somebody, we don't just dive right into the agenda. We pause and we center beforehand, and we do a creative exercise that helps us sort of acknowledge what it is we're carrying with us into the room that day, and center before diving into something. So I think little things like that are important for individuals to be doing. And I think what's challenging now is that we just have to be much more intentional about making sure we're doing them, because before we had so many of those natural interactions that we don't necessarily have now. And so we might not always have an hour to unpack what it is we're feeling and what we need. But I think even more important than that is finding those micro moments to do it for ourselves and with one another. And it can be something fun and creative. Like sometimes we'll open up meetings with like, if you could describe how you were feeling as a type of food or the weather or a fictional character, or we'll say how we're feeling and pair it with a movement, because sometimes it's easier to, it's harder to acknowledge what you're feeling, but if you put it into a movement, it might be a little bit easier for you to understand what it is you're carrying. So I think it doesn't always need to be something as formal as a 3-hour long professional development session. But I think that even more important than that, finding those little micro moments to connect with your peers and being really intentional about the way that you do it can go a long way in helping with some of that compassion fatigue and helping you feel not so alone in your experience.
So let's play that out a little bit. I'm going to do a little social experiment. I'm going to ask you to play along if you're comfortable with this, Kendall, and anybody else that's watching. I want to see you address this in the comments. So you said sometimes it's important to acknowledge your feelings, who you are, but to do it in a playful way. So here's what I want people to do. The Teach Better team, we've been doing a lot of things with holiday movies lately. We've been having brackets and tournaments and really discussing the best holiday movies. If you're watching this right now, I want you to think long and hard. Which character from a holiday movie best represents how you feel right now? So thinking about what you're going through, what you're feeling in this season today. I don't even know what the date is, December something. It's a Thursday. How are you feeling right now? And which character from a holiday movie best describes or represents you? So feel free to throw it in the comments. I'll go first to kind of lead things off, if that's okay. For me, I think this week, quite a bit, I've kind of felt like Herbie the dentist, the little elf from Rudolph. In the Rudolph story, Herbie's this elf who kind of feels like he doesn't quite fit in. He's struggling to find his niche, but he's got this passion that not everybody understands. But he knows it's what he's supposed to do. And he is just trying his best to find somebody that recognizes that. And the rest of the world sees him as a misfit, kind of sees him as this guy that doesn't quite fit in, but he knows what he knows. And then eventually he unites with other misfits who go out there and save the day. So I'm going to go with Herbie the dentist. I see Sarah here is saying Elf from Elf. So Sarah is a Buddy. Megan is Clark Griswold, hassled by all the grades, just feeling a little overwhelmed. Maybe the grades are sort of like the Christmas lights. She can't quite get them to connect. We got the abominable snowman, the abominable snow monster here, going out there ready to eat the poor reindeer. So, Kendall, I'm curious, how do you feel? Who are you?
So the first thing that came to mind, and mine might not be quite as descriptive as yours, but the first thing that popped into my mind was Buddy the Elf, because I just watched Elf recently. And I woke up today feeling really kind of giddy and happy. And
Well, it's because you knew you were going to be hanging out with me.
Exactly.
Right?
There was snow outside. I was tempted to put some maple syrup in my coffee. So I was feeling very sort of giddy and joyful. Had I have done this yesterday, I might have chosen a different character, but this morning and the few hours that I've gotten to experience this Thursday, I've been feeling like Buddy the Elf.
That's awesome. And Stacy here says Rizzo the Rat from Muppets Christmas Carol. That's interesting. It's good. But I like this kind of activity because it allows you to look inside yourself for a second, to own where you are, but then you can, in a way, kind of depersonalize it and open up without feeling like you're sharing your soul. And you can say things that other people can relate to. If you just say, I'm happy or I'm sad or I'm frustrated, there's some vagueness to that because we all see those things a little bit differently. But when you point it to these characters, it leads to a deeper conversation. That's fun. Absolutely. That's good. That's practical.
It's fun, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that teachers could do with their students as well. As a little opener to class, like throw a bunch of them up there and which one do you relate to the most and why, and really get to know their students. It doesn't even necessarily have to be focused on their emotions and their feelings, but just their personality types or their environment or whatever the case may be. I love that. That was fun. Yeah. Thanks for playing along.
Right? It makes one thing I like about a lot of the ways that Move This World goes about our exercises is that emotions can be intimidating to talk about. I feel, I went to school for social work, so it's something that I've always cared about is mental health and emotions, but they can be really intimidating. They're complex, they're hard to figure out. And so when you give individuals a different avenue for exploring what it is they're feeling and carrying into the room that day, it just opens so many doors. And another thing that I think is helpful and that I bring up in conversations with schools is that we don't always necessarily have to unpack them. Like, I think people are reluctant to diving into emotions because it feels like all of a sudden we're opening the door to an hour-long therapy session. And that doesn't need to be the case. Sometimes it's just a matter of calling out, today I'm feeling sleepy. Today I am feeling nervous for some reason. Today I'm feeling really overwhelmed. And when we can name that and acknowledge that, we're taking the step in the right direction for understanding what we need. And when we understand how others are feeling, maybe today I'm Buddy the Elf, maybe tomorrow, hopefully not, I'm the Grinch. When we understand how our peers are feeling, I think we know how to approach them differently or what they need or what we can do to support one another. Because I know if I'm feeling like the Grinch tomorrow and one of my peers is feeling like Buddy the Elf, I would love if they can help me feel a little bit more like them or, check in with me or, there's so many different ways that I think just acknowledging how it is we're feeling and what we're carrying into the room. There's so many ways that can support our community and one another and ourselves, and the list goes on.
That's so good. So good. And Ray has a question. She wants to know who the opposite of the Grinch is. I'm going to say, Ray, you are like Cindy Lou Who. If I were to say the opposite of the Grinch, Cindy Lou Who. She's just consummate dreamer and everything's going to work out and everything is good. So, but Nikki takes it to that other extreme and kind of talks like you were just mentioning that right now she's feeling Grinchy. She says there's horrible driving weather. She says crappy weather. I'll say it. Being mandated to physically attend the building, like all these mandates coming down. But her hope is to feel better tomorrow. So she's throwing that out that this is how I feel today. But I'm hoping that my heart can grow 2 sizes tomorrow or whatever. And she wants to feel better. And yeah, of course, Ray, all she cares about is the hair. So, but that's okay. That's a conversation for another day. I'm curious. You said something that struck me as a former building administrator. I'm gonna be a straight shooter here. So SEL it's a buzzword right now. It is something it's sort of trendy, and it needs to be trendy. It needs to be a focus of conversation. I can imagine your job, your day job has taken a twist, a turn in recent months and recent days and recent weeks. But if we were to go back pre-pandemic, let's go to February 2020. Mm-hmm. And if I'm a building administrator and Kendall, you come to me and you talk about Move This World and the importance of the program and all the benefits of it, I'm going to look at you and say, yeah, sounds great. However, the whole idea of getting in touch with feelings and having kids own who they are as people, it's all great, but it takes valuable time away from instruction. It takes valuable time away from our data analysis and hitting our numbers, and we just don't have time for one of those things. You show me how this is going to affect our end of the year state scores, and maybe we'll talk. I mean, do you hear that kind of stuff often from administrators, or are they, no, I get it. Let's focus in on SEL right now. It's so important. What is the state of schools from that lens?
It's a great question. I think even pre-pandemic, I started to hear a little bit less and less of that, because I think that there's definitely been a sort of shift in culture where schools are recognizing that in order to be effective learners, and in order to feel focused in our day-to-day, this is a crucial part of that. And I think what I would say to somebody that was having a difficult time grappling with taking time away from instructional time is that they're going to get so much of it back, because this is such a proactive approach to addressing what is already going on for students. And I think the one benefit to our program is that, kind of similar to how I was talking about those micro moments for teachers, this is really structured and contained for classrooms. So they're spending between 5 or 8 minutes in the morning on an exercise that helps teachers understand what the experience of their students are that day, what they might need. And it's also equipping students with these different strategies and tools that they can apply to the various challenges, so that they, in the middle of the day, don't all of a sudden feel like they're having such a difficult time in the classroom focusing. They know what they can do in that time and space, whether it's counting to 10 or taking a few breaths or tightening and releasing. I mean, there's a lot of different strategies that we empower classrooms with, so that those teachers get their time back. They're not worrying about addressing challenges that are coming up for their students throughout the day and stopping a lesson to address that, because in the long run, students are learning these different strategies that are helping them become more effective learners. So I think that there's a lot to be said about that proactive approach. You're giving those students between 5 to 8 minutes in the morning to drop in on how they're feeling and connect with their peers and engage in this different creative practice that allows for them to focus and center throughout the rest of the day. It's very similar to, I think it mirrors the experience of what we can do as adults.
Yeah, for sure. And what you're describing really is why Teach Better does the daily drop-ins. I mean, there's a reason that we do this in the mornings, and this started back when at the end of March, when COVID really hit and schools were forced to transition and teachers were just looking for answers and solutions and looking for this community, and brought it back again recently in December here, because a lot of schools had switched and adjusted again, and teachers were back at that place saying, I just need something to hold on to in the mornings, just to give me some tools, give me some resources, give me some suggestions to make it through the day. And what I'm hearing you say is it's that same approach that is so valuable for kids, is just give them something to anchor onto in the morning, whether it's a vocabulary or a tool or a strategy, or just getting out their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings early on, so that teachers can make those connections and then plan for it. But I'm going to continue to push, because I know that most of the people watching this, they're classroom teachers, and they might be hearing this and saying, oh, I want this in my school, but my administrator won't go for it. So I'm trying to give them the tools to have this conversation with their administrator, so their administrators will start to accept and buy into the needs for this. I know that there are some educators out there that say this is all well and good for some teachers, but I don't want to open Pandora's box in my classroom. I'm not equipped for this. I don't want to have those conversations with students. I got into teaching because I love algebra, I love chemistry, I love biology, I love history. The whole touchy-feely thing is not quite my cup of tea. That's somebody else's job, not mine. How do we approach that and have that conversation and say, no, this is important for everybody?
It's a great question. And it's definitely something that comes up when we first start working with schools. I think it's inevitable that there's going to be some resistance early on to something that might be really unfamiliar to you. And I think one important thing that I always like to bring up is, as adults, a lot of us did not grow up with SEL in our day-to-day in school. So it feels really, it can feel uncomfortable or intimidating if you're not familiar with it. And so I think that resistance is really important to hone in on. And again, what I always say here is, this is not going to necessarily open up an hour-long discussion around how we're feeling. This is giving us the time and space to just acknowledge what it is we're carrying into the room today. Oftentimes, that will come about in one way or another, but if we provide some structure around it and it's contained, then it's going to be a much more productive and efficient way to actually deal with some of the things that students are bringing into the room. And I always think it's important that if in the event teachers find something out about their student that they didn't know before and that they're now concerned about, they just refer that student to the appropriate party so that they can get support. But the way that our video curriculum is structured is that we're very intentional about the exercises that we do with classrooms, because we don't want to, put teachers in a position that is going to be more uncomfortable than what they were ready for. So there's so much intention and research that goes into the program, and even just the questions that we ask students to think about, or the amount of time that we give them to process a question. There's a lot of intent that goes into that, because we know that this is going to be a small snippet of their day, and we want teachers to feel supported with the program, not like this is opening a can of worms. So it's a creative way there's a lot of creativity that goes into this, and it's just one way that we can acknowledge how it is we're feeling. I also think it's important to call out the fact that I think when we talk about SEL, the first thing that comes to mind is our emotions, and that is a huge part of SEL. But there's also a lot of other skills that SEL encompasses, things like setting goals and reaching our goals, or developing a growth mindset when we make mistakes, knowing how to acknowledge those mistakes and move forward, or working on our active listening skills or impulse control. There's so much that SEL encompasses. So it's not just the feelings and the emotions. There's also going to be a lot of other things that are so important in our learning and education process.
No, I love so much of what you just said, and so much of it is hitting me. So I'm going to unpack just a little bit, because I feel like I can trust you, Kendall, and it's just you and I right now talking. Nobody else is listening. But so I'm 43 years old, and I'll be completely honest with you. I spent 40 years of my life feeling like I had to keep it all to myself. I had to just keep it in, and anytime I would open up, it made me feel weak or vulnerable or soft or whatever stupid adjective I would use to excuse that. I wish I had learned early on how to talk, how to share, and how to be real. So I wish something like this had been implemented in my schools growing up for me, because it would have saved me a whole lot of drama as an adult. That's number one. Number two, I'm looking at this through the lens of even as a dad right now. So I have 4 kids, and I'm thinking about my oldest, who's 15 years old. And he's that typical 15-year-old where he has all the answers to all the things. And, he doesn't necessarily think that dad is the smartest person around anymore, where he used to worship me. And we had a couple of tough years together trying to figure things out. But as I worked hard to be intentional to try to support him and to reestablish our relationship, I spent a lot of time just trying to get him gifts. I would go get him a smoothie or a Monster Energy drink or Takis or something. I was trying to do these things to try to show him these tokens to say, Dad loves you. But what's interesting is last week we had the opportunity to do the love languages test together. And I found out through that his love language is quality time. And I had no idea. I thought he was gifts. I thought that I had to give him gifts. And that was his last one. So I had been spending the last couple of years trying to pour into him and trying to build this relationship and build this rapport by doing something that was not resonating with him. So the last week, every night we sit down and we watch TV together just for an hour, just sitting together on the couch. And our relationship, I mean, it is night and day just over the last week, because I'm finally recognizing who he is. And because I know what makes him tick a little bit better, I'm able to respond to him in a much more effective way. And what you're saying to me right now, classroom teachers, just getting to know who their kids are a little bit differently and knowing who they really are as people can help them connect, because we tend to look at things through the lens of, this is what works for me, so it's going to work for you.
Yeah.
But if we can get to know our kids better, everything else just grows from there. I just appreciate your insight. It truly helped me connect all those dots. This is amazing.
And thank you for sharing that. I mean, you're almost, I thought I was going to start tearing up there for a second. That's a really, but it's such an amazing story that you just shared. And I don't know, I think it's a really important one too. And it's really hard. I mean, even in my own personal life as well, it's hard to step out of the things that work for us and understand that sometimes we need to switch up the approach that we go about with something. So I absolutely adore that story, and I really appreciate you sharing it.
No, absolutely. And
but I think
Nikki here recognizes, she's relating to that as a 12-year-old. And Alex, just to answer the question, is gifts my love language? It's actually not. I'm more of an acts of service. It's the thought behind the gift, not the actual gift itself for me. So it's knowing that I matter, that matters. So if you're thinking about getting me something, Alex, yes, I would love some cool socks or a tie that shows you really know me. Just saying, wink, wink. No, I'm totally kidding. Go ahead. I totally cut you off though.
No, not at all. I was just going to say that some of the best or most exciting feedback that I've gotten from teachers is that they like the program because it helps them learn things about their students that they wouldn't otherwise. And I think there's so many teachers that value the relationships that they have with students, and sometimes kind of going back to the resistance piece, sometimes there's resistance in the form of, well, I already do stuff to get to know my students and to build those relationships. Like, I don't need this. And I think that for those teachers are the ones that end up being like the super users and the ultimate like move this world champions, because they'll watch a video and they don't just stop there. They keep the conversation going, and they find so many different ways to incorporate something that was covered in an exercise into some of their other different projects that they have going on and exercises and things like that. So I think there's just so much value in taking a moment to pause and understanding one another a little bit better and understanding what we might need from each other. So adjusting our approach, going from giving those gifts and acts of service to spending time. I think it's a great analogy and way to think about the value of taking that pause and finding different approaches to get to know one another and connect with one another.
Oh, so good. And you've made a believer out of me, Kendall. So I can only imagine people that are listening or watching to this, whether they're watching the live right now or the replay or listening to this on the podcast or hearing this right now, saying, this is amazing. How do I learn more? How do I get connected to this? How do I follow along? Where do I get more information? I'm hoping that people will spend the next 2 weeks, if they get time off, maybe spending 5-10 minutes of that time just exploring more of this to bring it back to their school. So how do they get connected to move this world and all the amazing things that you guys are doing?
Well, I hope that many of you do check us out and learn a little bit more about us. Definitely check out our website, which is just movethisworld.com. On there, you'll find out a lot of information about our offerings, which again, they go beyond just the classroom tools and the video curriculum for students. We have a ton of offerings for adults and educators as well, which incorporate our professional development and all that good stuff. So definitely check out our website. I hope that you guys have questions and that you follow up with us, because there's a lot of amazing work that we're doing.
Absolutely. And I was on the website playing around last night and could not get out. It was like rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole that I just kept diving into. Not because you trapped me, but just everything in there was just so amazing and so intriguing. So yeah, I encourage you, check out movethisworld.com. So much amazing insight there and ways to connect with you and your team, and hopefully bring this to your school, your environment, your system, because kids need it. And as the adults in this world, we need it as well. It gives us the support, gives us the space, gives us some of the tools and strategies that we didn't have, and allows us to open those doors to the conversations that we know our kids need. And going back to Carly's question early on about dealing with this fatigue, so much of us have this fatigue because we feel like we're supposed to be inventing this stuff ourselves. We're supposed to be figuring this out ourselves. But you and Move This World are there to support us and to stand beside us and giving us strategies and tactics that we can then implement, videos that we can share with our students to equip them with the things that we're not necessarily equipped to deal with. So good. So good. So on that note, Kendall, we've been talking now for 45 minutes. Holy cow. And I feel like I could just keep you here all day. People that are watching know that I could keep you here all day. That's not fair to you. So I'm going to wrap this up in just a second, but do you have any final thoughts, final words that you want people listening or watching to walk away from? We mentioned where to find Move This World. But you covered so much. We did the funny little thing with holiday characters, owning your feelings, connecting with others. Anything that you want to just bring back to the surface and say, here's what I want you guys to walk away with today?
So one thing that I typically close out meetings with when I'm speaking with administrators and counselors and social workers and all of the individuals that are just really divine in doing this amazing work, I always close out our meetings and usually we're up on time, we're running around, but I close it out by encouraging them to commit to doing one thing for themselves. Sometimes if we can have more of a conversation, I ask them to consider one thing they can do for themselves that day or what it is they will do. And most of the time, nobody has an answer. So I would just leave everyone tuning in with that same kind of note. What is one thing that you will do just for yourself today? Whether it is going for a walk or even just drinking lots of water, finding something that you can intentionally do for yourself and commit to that. So that's my how I'll close this out.
Awesome. Even if it's shoveling a path of snow down your driveway so you can just get out for the day. Put an extra little shot of that caramel or whatever in your coffee today. Do something for you. I love that, because when you do something for you, you can then turn around and do something for others. Love it. Kendall, this was absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful that we got to connect. Thank you to Ray that allowed me to chat with you. Thank you to you for getting up early and hanging out with me and sharing so much wisdom with our Teach Better family. Teach Better family, just remember, tomorrow is our last day for now of the daily drop-in. I can't believe it. It's been 3 weeks of this already. It's been absolutely incredible. But check out the daily drop-in tomorrow. Jeff and Ray are going to be here to close things out. So come join them. Also remember, on December 29th, we've got 12 hours of dropping in. 12 hours of Teach Better Team going live from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Curious to see how many people are committing to check that out the entire time. Anybody out there that's really going to hang out with us for 12 hours? I already said that one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to hide some Christmas presents from my kids and make them open them on the morning of the 29th. Just that they have a few extra things to play with so I can hang out as long as possible on the 29th. But I'm hoping some other people check us out. Also, remember the gift a grid over at educationblueprint.org, where you can share resources for others, allow other people to be gifted with your amazing ideas so that in January, our kids can all have the most amazing experience possible. But in the meantime, go check out Move This World, explore their resources, connect with them, bring them to your school, bring them to your students, bring them to you, because amazing things are happening. So, Kendall, again, thank you so much.
Thank
you
you.
are absolutely phenomenal. This was so much fun. And Teach Better family, we'll see you soon. Don't forget Mastery Chat tonight. We'll see you there.